Do buyers pay realtor fees? The simple answer is maybe. So, according to the new rules set forth after August of 2024, in order for a buyer to see a home, they will have to have a signed buyer's rep agreement. That buyer's rep agreement outlines how the buyer's agent is to be paid. It could be a percentage or it could be a flat fee amount. Now, take note that in that agreement it also states that the buyer's agent will attempt to receive their compensation from the seller or through other persons. So they're going to make every attempt before they come to the buyer. Now we'll talk about 4 ways that a buyer's agent can be paid. And the first one is the seller pays. So the seller would pay the entire commission. For example, if the buyer's rep agreement states 3% for the buyer's agent, the seller is going to pay the whole 3%. Now, the buyer's agent will contact the listing agent to see what the seller is going to pay. The seller does not have to disclose what they're willing to pay the buyer's agent. They'll simply say send an offer and include the commission that you want. That means it's going to be negotiated. Now, the buyer can request to see only homes where the seller's agent discloses what they're going to pay the buyer's agent. The next one is the buyer pays the agent directly. This is going to come straight out of the buyer's pocket. But keep in mind, the buyer's agent is going to search for many other ways before coming to the buyers for commission. The third one is the combo approach. This is where the seller pays some of the buyer's agent commission and the buyer pays some of the agent commissions. So this works. Here's an example. So if the 3% is what's agreed on the buyer's rep agreement, the seller can pay 2% and the buyers can pay 1%. The fourth one is seller's concessions. So in this one, the buyer's agent is going to negotiate for concessions to be added towards closing. And that means that amount can be used to pay the buyer's agent commission. The buyer's agent is only paid when it is earned and payable. So earned is when the buyer goes under contract to buy a home or when the buyer breaches the buyer's rep agreement. Payable is upon closing of the contract of the home. Also, it's when if the buyer breaches the contract, the buyer will pay. So if the buyer is under contract to purchase a home, they've been through the option period where they could have opted out. They've gone all the way through, things are in good shape for them to close, and then the buyer decides that they don't want the home. In that case, the buyer is still going to have to pay commission to the buyer's agent because they fulfilled their obligations in helping them get to a home. But the buyer is opting out with it just can't opt out at that point. The other way that they're paid is if they breach the buyer's rep agreement. So let's say that the buyer has agreed to work with an agent in a certain county, and then the buyer goes and purchases another property, does this whole deal by himself, and doesn't use the buyer's agent. In that case, the buyer's agent is entitled to the commission that was set forth in the buyer's rep agreement. So that means that they still are responsible for paying them. Let's say you want to terminate the agreement. You have the right to terminate the agreement whenever you choose, but you may incur some fees. So when you sign the buyer's rep agreement, you agreed to be under this agreement for a certain number of days. That could have been 90 days, it could have been 6 months or a year or whatever you decided with the agent. Now in this case, if you want to terminate the agreement prior to that end date, there is a document that has to be signed by both the buyer and the buyer's agent. And in doing that, you can terminate it, but you may incur some fees. And those fees are related to homes that the buyer's agent has shown you. So, for example, if they showed you 20 properties, that document is going to have a list of those addresses and the amount that was agreed upon for commission. And in that case, if the buyer does not hire another agent to go back and purchase those properties, then the current agent is given the commission. Now, if the buyer hires another realtor and they go back and purchase one of those properties, there are no fees due to the agent that you terminated the agreement with. Keep that in mind whenever you're setting that date to decide when the agreement is going to end. What does the buyer's agent do to earn their commissions? In the buyer's rep agreement, there are 3 obligations that the buyer's agent has to you. One of those is to assist in showing you properties and acquiring a property. The second one is to negotiate, and the third one is to comply with the provisions of the buyer's rep agreement. Now, when you sign this agreement, a fiduciary relationship is created, and what that means is that the buyer's agent has certain obligations to you, and that is to provide you with obedience. They're to be obedient to you, loyal to you, provide disclosure on anything they learn about any transaction, any property. They are to provide confidentiality, accountability, and reasonable care. These are given to you once the agreement is signed. The buyer's agent does much more than this. Besides just showing you property, they provide you with research in the area, the neighborhood. They'll provide you like the months of inventory, recent sales. They'll create a CMA. They'll help you in negotiating. They'll provide all the documents and explain every document to you, including the contract. They'll give you a seller's disclosure or any other related documents to the property. They're going to schedule, they're going to communicate with the listing agent, they're going to communicate with the title company, with also the lender, making sure all deadlines are met, making sure that everything is going along smoothly because they know and understand the process. And there's so much more that a buyer's agent does for you that a lot of people thought that it was just you get on Realtor.com, you find a property, you hit the button that says, find me a realtor, and then you meet the realtor at the door and look at a property and then a contract is written up. That's not all there is to it. And in fact, you can't see a property without a buyer's rep agreement. So that should be fully explained to you before you go anywhere. There's just a host of things that a buyer's agent can do to earn their commissions. If you have questions, or please comment below, or if you want to follow with all the rest of my videos, be sure to like and subscribe.